Hello everyone and welcome back to this course on implementing high availability solutions with Windows Server 2019. This is the second section of the course called Implement High Availability and Disaster Recovery Options in Hyper-V. The first video is called Hyper-V Migration Overview, and in this video we are going to talk about the various methods you can do a migration in Hyper-V, in standalone Hyper-V to be more exact. The whole notion of migration and the technologies that enable migration to occur is something that has been around for a very long time. Basically, it's baked into pretty much every hypervisor nowadays. But because Hyper-V does provide some of these extra edge use cases, I think it's worth our time to talk about the different ways in which migrations can occur when you're working with Hyper-V. Let's start first with the simplest of solutions, the simplest of use cases. Here, a single Hyper-V host. That Hyper-V host in this use case has a directly attached bit of storage and just some disks that are on the server, basically. And then running on that Hyper-V host will be a single virtual machine. Let's call it VM1. We need to transfer VM1 over to another computer. Now, old way to do it was by powering down the virtual machine, exporting it out, doing the file copy, and importing it into the second Hyper-V host. But here, with shared nothing live migration, we can just take a second Hyper-V host and just transfer over the running CPU and the memory state of the virtual machine right there from Hyper-V1 to Hyper-V2. And the real exciting part is that the virtual machine really has no idea of what's going on, right? You will see on an average maybe, let's say, a little bit of ping packet loss or maybe a little bit of hiccup in its activities. But the reality is the whole point here with the live migration is that the activities of the virtual machine continue to execute as you migrate it to another host. And uh, shared nothing live migration, if you're using locally attached disks, if you have literally nothing shared between those two machines, always generally requires also a storage migration of the VHDX files to go from one data store to another data store, and that is the storage migration, of course. Now let's talk about the next slide. And this is the case where you have storage shared between your Hyper-V hosts. Basically, this is the most used case you will find in a production environment. And given the fact that you have the shared storage between the two hosts, you will only have to do the migration of the virtual machines, as I said earlier, of the running CPU and its memory state. And so this is actually, in fact, the live migration you will most find in production environments in almost any organization that's working with Hyper-V. Now, with the live migration, you migrate VMs from one host to another, and they have the attached storage. But let's say that you have several pieces of storage, like a storage area network, right? And you would like to migrate the entire storage over to another data store. Well, that is called the storage migration, and that is done exactly like I'm highlighting here in the slide. That is done through a storage migration, and that is an option you will find in Hyper-V to migrate only the storage of the VMs. Next one would definitely be, if you can see here, you migrate this V rectangle here represents a data store, and you migrate the entire chunk of storage to another data store. The next one and the last one would be the storage replica, and that is used in disaster recovery scenarios where you have your Hyper-V host in a site and the storage as well, and you have another totally different site with other Hyper-V hosts and other pieces of storage. And basically what you do is just leveraging the replica feature of the Hyper-V technology, you replicate the entire storage and virtual machines to another site, and those VMs the other site will be shut down, and the replication will occur at a given interval of time, which you can configure, and you can also manually or set it to automatically bring up those VMs in the other site if your primary site fails. Now,